Good morning and welcome to Kusile Breakfast. Thank you so much for joining us. It is 6 o'clock on the dot. It's a magazine even in Langalili Tolo. Led Busasigilis and Busela Senamugela Lumsha on the show. My name is Lungalele Makakula. Thank you so much for joining us. It is the 6th of June 2023. I'm not alone. I'm with my co-host, Facing Ramal. Good morning,
A very good morning, Lulu. Quite a chilly morning today. Starting the day at 9 degrees Celsius. But we're here, we're braving the cold to bring nothing but the best of our breakfast show to our viewers. Eswatini TV nayo Kusile breakfast show. Sinbusele kodwa muhle sithemba ukuthi nivuka kahle nathi lo mhla ekseni sisanile thina kona nakulo kumnanzi namhla ke hlelo ndulu we will be looking at yona World Environment Day le nto lesibinlayit dollar as people around the world including bohulumende bemave seba requested ukuthi ba answerishe to the call, let's say solutions to plastic pollution. This as World Environment Day was marked on Monday the 6th of June. Sicubulo ke salonyaka sibuke nje indaba ukuthi kutholakala isisombululo dayo plastic pollution esebuka ngathi yanza nelizinga lelisetulu. A campaign we lehanjiswa ke ngesivinini under hashtag let's see beat plastic pollution is a reminder that people's actions on plastic pollution matters. Ma steps ke latathathwa bohulumende labehlukene nemabhizinisi in terms of tackling yona plastic solution angiyo consequence of this action. What are the steps that Eswatini is taking, noma ke the steps that Eswatini are taking to redesign ways to mitigate yona indaba plastic pollution. We will discuss this development further na Isaac Dladla, who is the Eswatini Environment Authority Executive Director. Looks like saying 6:30, don't go anywhere.
As we have for 7, na project coordinator Aweli Hovisi is study loan recovery consortium Kukusimilane atosinganje update on the repayment of government scholarship Guma beneficiaries. In 2019, the consortium identified 26,888 beneficiaries, and about 10,000 of these individuals signed the scholarship repayment consent forms. February 2019, the consortium yakona kukuleka imali lengadulu kwa 65 million emalangeni nakuphela kona third quarter yeminyaka wa 2018 bese ke kusho ke report yelitiko yaka labor ngeminyaka wa 2022 ngaDecember le office selithole imali kuma beneficiaries lenganga 208 million emalangeni kusukela ngeminyaka wa 2017. So ke namhla sitabe sibuka overview nje yale project compliance kuma beneficiaries kanye ke nema strategies labasebenzisa ko lengile office ukuthola abantu labasolo bangaveli ukuthi obhadala le mali. Kanti ke lokusho labafuna ukusukumisa ukuthi labo labasolo babaleka bangafuni ukubhadala le mali angeke bakhona uku-accessa ema-government services. So sitabe sithitheka kabanti leti naye kokusimelane lo mhla ekseni at 7:30. So nesiqiniseko sokuthi udlala nathi lo muhla sibahlala emakethe nasibuya sithatha indaba defuda Eswatini. Umhlonishwa uNdvunankhulu Cleopas Dlamini sawubuyile ekhaya wevenile Turkey lapho bekamelele khona silenkosi umsado wesithathu emcimbini wekufungiswa kwamengameli wakulela live Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Mdvunankhulu ufikelele esikhumulweni setindiza yakhe eMswati the 3rd International Airport.
Ekufikeni kwakhe umhlonishwa Mdvunankhulu Cleopas Dlamini lapha eVenice esikhumulweni setindiza iKing Mswati the 3rd International Airport bekahlangabetwe tindvuna tembuso nalamanye emalungu etinhlangosi letahlukene tahulumende. Ndvunankulu bekamele Ngwenyama Silwenkosi Mswati wesithathu emcimbini wokufungiswa kwamengameli welive leTurkey Recep Tayyip Erdogan lobanjwe ngeMgcibelo. Sekakhuluma nebetindzaba umhlonishwa Ndvunankulu uthi lo msebenzi wokufungiswa kwalo mengameli welive leTurkey uhambe kahle.
Bekhona ke mavela amaningi kakhulu la ngetulu kwaMazve lamashumi lasikhombisa nemavela atside bo president nabo bebabanengi impela bebangetulu kwamashumi lamabili president bo heads of state emavela ehlukene. Umsebenzi uhambe kahle kakhulu uthathe isikhathi esifishane kakhulu ngiyabona nje emva kwama-hour lamabili bese i-event bezivele seyiphelile. Ukhulumeka bandike mengameli ukuthi usalive lakhe utaliphakamisa kutemnotho nokuthi ke ngalowo busuku vele balomsebenzi wavele washo ukuthi utawube announce i-cabinet kwathi insamba amavele lwabe seliphumile luhla le-cabinet lensha lekayibekile.
Budlelwane belive laseSwatini nelive leTurkey bucale ngeminyaka wa-1981 kanti umhlonishwa Ndvunankulu Cleopas Dlamini bekahambe nendvuna yetangaphandle nekudlelana lamanye emave ethula idladla losaseveni leZambia kuyongena lomunye umhlangano lobukuthuthukisa emave akakhomesa. Etindzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Samkeliswe Khoza Nasimuva Shongwe eKing Mswati III International Airport.
Ngalokunye umhlonishwa Ndvunankulu uthi njengoba loyo lodibitanga commander wama-Solidarity Forces Thabo Kunene asetandleni temtsetfo utawusita kukhipha bonke laba labasekela ngetimali babhebhetele ludlame lapha eveni.
Nangabe kuthiwa sebabambekile sokuthi kungayileka kusiside kakhulu ngoba batawukhona ukuthi basikhanyisele ukuthi bebasebenza banabo bani babhadalwa bobani. Yonke le information leyo seyitawuphumele bale so singasho ukuthi cha kusebenzekile nabo kwendlela lo. Ngangivele ngishitoke ukuthi nabemthetho vele batabalandzela babathole bayawugcina babathole ngamunye so baqhubeka naloko bathola sinikonsisi bafana bembulo bayasebenza.
Imvuna yelitiko letekuvakasha netindzaba temvelo Moses Vilakati ithi tibi temaplastic atigcine ngebunyukubeta emvelo kuphela kepha atigcina titsikabeta temphilo netekulima. Imvuna bekhuluma ngesikhathi live ligubha ilanga lakamhlaba letemvelo i-World Environment Day emavuso.
Litiko letekuvakasha nemvelo litiko letekulima lihhovisi lakamhlaba kuleli netinhlangothi letithinzekako ekugcineni nasekulondvolotweni kwetibi bahlangene kugubha lelanga ngaphansi kwesicubulo lesithi asilwe netibi temaplastiki. Indvuna yetekuvakasha nemvelo Moses Vilakati ikhutsate kubambisana kwato tonke tinhlangothi kute live lincobe indzaba yetibi temaplastiki.
Lesi sisekula ikhono nokuntshintsha lokho lobe kukubi la bese sikwenta kuba kuhle akube indzaba yethu sonke. Bantu bayaphila baphila ngale ndzaba yetibi nemaplastiki. Besingeke sibe nangwenya glass. Kube kwabade lo wathi lapha kule rubbish bin akube nemabhodlela bese bawathatha bamixa engweni bayabakalela babanikete leto timali.
Indvuna yetiko letekulima lebeyimelwe lisekela lamabhanane lomkhulu kuleli tiko Gugu Bangu ithi kulahlwa kabi kwemaplastiki kutsikabeta kukhicitwa kwekudla.
The low cost and vast range of available plastic products has changed agricultural production from a traditionally low waste activity to an industry with a significant waste problem. The manufacture and marketing of new plastic products has increased plastic use. This has helped farmers increase yields and reduce food waste, but it has outpaced the development of systems and processes to reuse, recycle, effectively biodegrade and adequately dispose of many agricultural plastics.
Losabambe kuba ngumphathi welovisi lakamhlaba kuleli Amina Mohammed yena uthi batawuchubeka nekubambisa live kunciphisa tibi. Ngekusho kwelicwaningo laleli tiko kuthatha iminyaka lefikako ekhulwini ukuthi liplastiki libole kanti live laseSwatini selicale kubona netifo letihambisana nekulahlwa kabi kwemaplastiki. Etindzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Samkeliswe Khoza Namuzi Mkhonta kaManzini.
Litiko letasekhaya selamukele imishini alefaya ekhathi banqumba umshina nalokunye lokuchamuka enhlanganweni yaka-USAID yabaka-PACT. Le mpahla yamukelwe indvuna yelitiko letasekhaya umbhalo Nkosi Lindiwe.
Inhlangano yaka-USAID ngokusebenzisana nebaka-PACT sabanikele leli tiko letasekhaya ngemishini letawenta kusebenta kwaleli tiko kube melula njengoba lisebhekene nekunika sive titifiketi tichaza buve nalokunye. Lokukhulumele inhlangano yaka-USAID lokungumzwethu uNkambule lothe beyasibona sidingo sale mishini etiko kungako kwebente lo mnikelo.
We applaud the government's initiative to issue birth certificates at the maternity wards of major hospitals. Babies who can start life with a birth certificate even before they leave the hospital have a better chance in life to be safe, stable, schooled, and healthy. USAID is honored to support the birth registration in Mbabane Government Hospital and Raleigh Fitkins Memorial Hospital by donating the office equipment that will make the task of the CRVS officers easier and enable them to capture the data.
Ibonga lo mnikelo indvuna yetasekhaya uMntwana Nkosi Lindiwe ithe lo mnikelo ufike ngesikhathi lesikahle kakhulu njengoba basachubeka nemsebenzi we-mopping exercise.
Such a donation has therefore come at a very critical time, and government extends her sincere gratitude to PACT. As earlier mentioned, we have a mopping exercise, and therefore we have christened this exercise as closing of the tap, for you cannot keep mopping the floor whilst the faucet is not only leaking but is fully open.
Indvuna ithi njengoba bafuna ukusonzeta lusito esiveni lokhu kutawenda umsebenzi ube melula basahamba tifunza ngetifunza. Leti into etinikelweke tilinganiselwa ku-214,000 wemalangeni kanike tifaka ekhatsi i-laptop, ama-desktop computers, ama-printer nalokunye. Etizabeni ngimgiyani Msibingi naSmuva Shongwe eMbabane.
Litiko letemphilo lithi isive sesiyakulangatelela ukuthi salabantwana labangemantombazane bathatha umjovo i-human papillomavirus vaccine lotosita ekuhleseni lizinga lamdlavuza womlomo wesibeletho i-cervical cancer. Umphathi we-National Cancer Control Program kuleli Kusile Dlamini uthi emsombuluko evikini lelitako kujova kutawusukunyiswa ngalokusemthethweni bese ngakusasa kwakhona lokungilesibili tisebenti tetemphilo litawuvakashela tikolo tonke kuyojova bantfwana labangemantombazane labaneminyaka lesukela kule yemfica kuya kuleli 14. Dlamini uthi batali abangakhatsateki njengaloku lomjovo ungeke ubaphadamise bantfwana.
Lesi kunakile njena bese sinasibakhulumisa kulabanye nje labadzala bokhaza ukuthi babuta ukuthi akajovangani bona ngoba bevunga ngathi bawubona lo msebenzi wawo lo mjovo lokusho ukuthi leliningi labo kwanyalo lisikhombise ukuthi bawuva bomcokwa bawo and batimisele ukuthi bawuthathe noma bakhuthathe bantwana babo bawuthathe. Lokusho ukuthi kwanyalo vele sitawugcizelela lokuthi ungumjovo lophephile ngoba lamanye emave awujovile laveni la Africa. Legciwane le human papilloma virus lithathelana kakhulu la ekulaleni. So nangabe lo mfana angakalali kwenta ukuthi avikeleke kakhulu kule sifo noma kule virus noma kule infection ekuthiwa human papilloma virus kwenta ukuthi lizinga lakhona lokuvikeleka libe setulu. So nomfana nangabe usangakaqali kulala kusinikete amathuba lamahle kakhulu ukuthi bangavikeleka. And lokunye ke mhlambe lomunye angacabanga ukuthi le nemantombazane labanye bakaveta ukuthi mhlambe sifuna kuvimba intalo yabo yini. Lo mjovo awuhambelani nentalo kephana uhambelana neligciwane lesingalithola ngekulana lelibizwa ukuthi human papilloma virus.
Umngane amakhosi losikhulu samphakathi wasezulwini isifisa khumalo uthi imitamene elive konga imvelo umgcoka ukuthi bantwana bafundiswe basebancane ngekonga imvelo. Ukusho lokhu ngesikhathi lo mphakathi ugubha usuku lwetemvelo lakamhlaba i-World Environment Day.
Umphakathi wasezulwini ubemtsibi munye nemhlaba ekugubheni ilanga letemvelo. Umsebenzi bobanjelwe enzaweni lapho khona bekulahlwa budlabha tibi. Lenzawo ichinge futhi ibe nedonga lelikhulu. Sikhulu semphakathi wasezulwini umngane wemakhosi Sifiso Khumalo uyachaza.
Phake vele sinoluhlelo la ezulwini tekuvala tindvonga siphindze sinelihlelo lekuthi every day of the month ngesigodzi ngokwehlukana kwayo tiyaklina tinelihlelo sithi clean just to ensure ukuthi kuhlala kuklobile.
Indvuna yenkundla yakalobamba Abraham Bempe uchaza ngemisebenzi lethophakanyiswa uma leli donga selivaliwe.
Sibona kuphela lokuvala. Sithathe sihlala phansi nama-stakeholders onke kufaka ekhathi libandla lomphakathi. Kube ngila khona kubuya labo works ngoba sinabo works la sinabo nabo brewery namatiko lamakhulu kuhlale phansi le-stakeholder committee. Kwenziwe i-drawing lengasuyithabusha le place ukuthi ibe yintuthuko letawusita wonke umuntu lokhona.
Umhlolo tekuhloba ebandleni lekonga imvelo Eswatini Environment Authority Ndumiso Makagula uthi umcokwa kuthi eMaswati afundziswe ngabe umcokwa bekulahla kahle tibi.
Sikhuthate naletinye tinkampani kukhona naluhlelo lwe-deposit refund system lesilibonile kuletinye tinkampani letikhona eSwatini.
Lisekela sihlalo welibandla lelibuke intuthuko emphakathi wasezulwini kuDwili Maziya uthi kulenzawo bekulahlwa ngalokungekho emthethweni tindvo letisetshenziswa edibhedlela ubonge litiko letempilo ukuthi belibabambisa njalo nje uma kulahlwe tibi letifana naleti letibonakala ukuthi tiyingoti. Etindzabeni kubika Fortune Dlangamandla ngisezulwini.
Osabambe ukuba umphathi esibhedlela se-Relay Fitken Memorial Dr. Raymond Bichong uthi isibhedlela sitayiphenya indzaba yokushona komntwana asanza kubelekwa ngenxa yebudlabha lokusolakala ukuthi bendiwe 87 lita lesibhedlela. Ukusho lokhu kulandzela ukuthi imake loshonelwe ngololuswane athi kunanesi lowala kumsita wajutshwa ngumhelo ema-awa lolinganiselwa kula-16.
Nelisondo lomsakato titfomba ubike ukuthi kunamake loshonelwe ngumntwana asanza kumbeleka esibhedlela sase-RFM lowenda tinsolo tekuthi ushoniswe ukuthi beyakathanga kutfoli kunakekeleka kahle. Losabambe kuba ngumphathi kulesibhedlela Dr. Raymond Bichong uthi lesibhedlela sitosukumisa liphenyo lokutfola emaciniso kule tinsolo.
And if through that process is ascertained that there is a responsibility for our staff, then we have internal disciplinary process that will be put in place to take care of such. So, unfortunately, with the limited time that I was given for the information, I can just confirm at this stage that yes, from our head of Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology.
Dr. Bichong uthi noma kuhle kuvela imibiko lemibi ngalesibhedlela ikakhulu leyo yokuphatheka kabi kwalabantu obeleka kusho ukuthi kude lokuhle lokhona kulesibhedlela. Uthi lesibhedlela ngisona sibelekisa bomake labanyenti kuleli lokwenta ukuthi ingahle ivele imibiko lefana nale yamake lothi ushonelwe luswane.
If we see the negative outcome that are being portrayed in the press, it's not a fair representation of all the multitude of clients that successively deliver here at our facilities. You know, with such high number of delivery, we are bound to have incident there and there.
Lodokotela uchubeka uthi emetameni alesibhedlela yaqinisekisa ukuthi tigulane tiphatheka kahle. Lesibhedlela sesinelihhovisi lapho khona tigulane letine khona tingabika khona. Etindzabeni kubika Fortune Dlangamandla ngikaManzini.
Inhlangano esiphambano lesibovu i-Red Cross ibabambisile bambenzawo yaseNsingizini labalinyalelwa takhiwo kulandzela siphepho lesabashiya ebaleni ngeminyaka lophelile.
Timvula lebethambisana nesangcotho ngenyanga yeLwete eminyakeni lophelile tenda umonakalo lomkhulu endzaweni yaseNsingizini. Inhlangano yesiphambano lesibovu seyilekelele emakhaya langetulu kwelikhulu ngamathayela kulokunye. Buchopho balendzawo selbigumbi uthi lesento sibe lisito kakhulu.
Laba sitakele kakhulu ababukile bekabuke laba lokho asivele sebangetulu kwa-60 netintsandzane nalabahluphekile kwaba ngibona laba-beneficially kule todimbahla thithi-ke dokufulela. EmaSwati akithi eNsingizini ajabule kakhulu kangangoba bayaqala lokhu nje so babakhona lokuthi Red Cross wente umlando eziveni zaseNsingizini. Kodwa ikolekthi sengakasitakali nato tashayeka kufaka ekhathi hluthi Central Primary
washayeka amafastela kusengasitaka nabo bese kuba na Central High School naye washayeka naye sengakasitakali sisagadzile ukuthi umpeni nalabanye bangasita labanye ke basitakele bathenga la ngoma class bathenga ama class labanye bathenga kudla lokonakele ukuthi bakhone kudla labanye ke babuyisela lokonakele
alinganiselwa ngetulu kwamakhulu amabili emakhaya lathinzeka kulesancotho kanzi lamanye awo lenhlangano yawancephetela ngemali letinkulungwane letintathu likhali linye lobika ke Ndzabeni Eswatini TV nguthando kuhle Mdluli ngisensingizini
basinzeke kulambisa abamfana besikolo ngesikhathi ibhasi bebayigibele itfola ingoti ngasemvutshini eNtolo Ntsambama
lapha emgwaqweni lo ngithela wayeka umgwaqo lo ngu-MR3 losuka ke eMbabane ubhekise kaManzini kwendeke ke ingodi yebhasi ibhasi ke Xolisani bus service bekade ithwele ke abantu besikolo njengoba kuthiwa isuka kaManzini eMbabane phindze ke Ntsambama isuke eMbabane ibheka kaManzini nabantu besikolo le ngodi ke yendeke nesitawufika nje emvutshini njoba kunemoto kanye ke nale bhasi leti be involved la kule ngodi lena safuna kuva kuwe amaphoyisa ukuthi ningabe eliphenyweni lawo kungimanje yini la kutholako nembangela yengodi
ibhasi lena yakaXolisani la ishabantwana school bus sithole ukuthi ishayise imoto yengodi yendeke lapha emva lapha kuleli yakona na ucetha kwewena icala yashayisa imoto lencane yabuya etoshayisa ngala kule median yasise yabuya ke itolenda ngala enhlanhla yethu ke ayikawi le bus kuze nje abantwana bethukile kude labalimele ukuthi lokubonakalako bethukile naleminyango awukavuleki so bakhonile ke ukuthi laba labasebenza kuyo bakhona kubahlisa abantwana abathethe ke ama-ambulance asaye nabo esibhedlela labanengi babo nje kube kulokuthuka hayi ukuthi kube kunekulimala yes
ingabe umshayeli yakhona nichaza sikhwale kumphazamisi
sikamkhanzi sisafuna yena nje asikamkhanzi kodwa nje yena labashoko akakalimali asimathi ke ukuthi ugcwele iganga wabheka kodwa nje ke asikamkhanzi sisafuna khona jale lesitako sisabuya kuhlobeni dakhe letinye nje sashaya incingo ukuthi abutethi abakambonini ngoba phela umuntu ngeke sisho ukuthi ubalekile ngindeka ube kukhona lokukhona mhlambe khona hlobo dakhe letinye tufike tamthatha kumbe tsamekise esibhedlela satha uqhubeka sifune khona lesibhedlela but nje ke lo fike ekucala uthi akakalimali
kanti ke naye umshayeli wemotolo lencane leshayise ngule bhasi nanaye kuthiwa ke kube ngodi makhada Ndzabeni Eswatini TV ngingilingithini kule nginasikhumbuzo Dlamini semvushini
Itikela kulimali kuthatha abadobi betinhlanti ukuthi bathole imvume etiko ukucala ngoba kudoba ngaphandle kwemvume kulicala lobukela uhlangothi lwetinhlanti etikela tekulima phumzile emhlanga uthi tinhlobonhlobo tetinhlanti letikhona emandini kumele tilomvoloteke tingashabalali ngenxa yekudoba lokungekho emthethweni mhlaba balusuku lokulwa nokudoba lokungekho emthethweni
Nasikhuluma nga-illegal fishing sikhuluma ukuthi bangena ngema-nets bafake la khathi baphume letinhlobo tetinhlanti letinhlobo leti okhanze ukuthi tiyasilahlekela in future bangena la emifuleni bangena emadamini kukhanze ukuthi akusiko controlled ukuthi bangena kanjani so nangabe bangena kahle kukahle lokho ukuthi bete etikweni bathole ipermit le permit ibasita ukuthi nabadoba badobe ngalendlela lefanele indlela lefanele ukuthi basebenzise i-hook and line lokuthi ufake idoba ekhatsemandini lokho ke siyathi ukuthi na uphuma letinhlanti udophuma nalo ifunako futhi udophuma nale size lo ifunako kanjalo futhi ngeke tize tibe dinye into uphuma nato ngalelo langa ngoba inkinga lekhona ukuthi nabafaka lamanethi bakhukhula konke kukhukhuleke nalo lokuncane kukhukhuleke naletinhlobo letinye lekhanza ukuthi setiyasilahlekela kani ngabe tiyabonakala ukuthi letinhlobo leti setiyancipha atingasathatheki ke leti la mifuleni but bathatha konke labanye ukhanze ukuthi le size ayibanetisi kahle bavele bayilahlele eceleni lokusho ukuthi lokho kuyasilimata vele kakhulu wonke longena emfuleni nje ukuthi uyodoba kufuna ukuthi ayithole le permit yokuthi uyodoba lokho kumenda ukuthi noma abe ngibani lotohlola asesithi nje ngoba kuyente kasebenzisane nemaphoyisa ngokuthi athi ayabuka ukuthi lona uyadweba akufuna amkhanze anayo imvume ukuthi uyadweba
letemidlalo lintanxumalo lophethe libandla letekuvakasha kuleli uthi inhlangano lengamele umdlalo wamabhayisikili kuleli kusukela kuncipha umkhuhlane COVID-19 ibambe imiqhudelwano lekhulisa tekuvakasha njengoba ingenelwa abashofi bemabhayisikili lababuya ngaphandle kwakuleli. Abekhuluma nakuchubeka umqhudelwano we-Imvelo MTB Classic.
Amave lamanyenti lasathuthukile asebenzisa temidlalo ukufukula iminotho yawo ngokubamba imiqhudelwano lekhanga tivakashi letibuya kulamanye amave. Kulempela somvo umqhudelwano umdlalo wamabhayisikili we-Imvelo MTB Classic lobubanjelwe emlilwane etinombolo tebashofu bemabhayisikili labangenelwa lumqhudelwano lababuya emaveni lafa ikhathi leMozambique, eNingizimu Afrika kanye nemave langashiya kwetilwandle, iNetherlands kanye naseNgilandi tikhombe kukhula.
Umisa yona iNetbank ukuthi ibambe umcimbi lonjena. Lo mcimbi ke lona ukhona ku events calendar yethu Sing Tourism Eswatini. Siyathi ukuthi i-cycling kusukela ngesikhathi sabo COVID ipick upile kakhulu. Sabona kungenela ema-cycling clubs lamaningi. Sibonga nje i-private sector ukuthi iwasekele le micimbi lena. Next week nje siyathi kusukhona lo munye. So siyadibongela kakhulu lokho sifokotisa kakhulu Sing Tourism ukuthi kune tivakashi lana letibuya komakhelwane eNingizimu Afrika, kunalaba buya koMozambique, nalabanye ke labadibela kulamanye amave, nalaba balakha eSwatini. Kakhulu lesikufokotela ngeke ukuthi much as kungiso sports tourism phinde futhi kube ukuthi kushukumisa umtimba abantu bahlala bangilabaphilile.
Kulempela somvo letaka kubheka ukuthi inombolo yalabo lababuya emaveni lamanye ikhulu emidlalweni wawo emabhayisikili we-border to border losuka eHekeni eNgwenya uyeka lavumisa. Lobikela umsakati Eswatini TV temidlalo ngilinda Dlamini eMbabane.
Laleto temidlalo sitibeka lapho tindzaba tethu lomhla tesiswati sitabahlela timakethe kanti nasibuya sifisa ukuthi abakhulumisana nemcondzisi welibandla yeSwatini Environment Authority ekulondolozwa kwemvelo. Hlala nathi esinshini esimesetulo.
Asiphinze sikwamukele ngolomuhle ehlelweni it is 31 minutes after 6 sesitfola ke sicephu sethu se-interview yethu yekucala lomhla ehlelweni sitabeke sikhulumisa yona indzaba ke ye-environment. Kukhumbula nje ukuthi it was World Environment Day. People around the world including bohulumende were requested or rather have been requested to answer to the call yekuthi kutfolakale tisombululo to yona ke plastic pollution. This as World Environment Day was marked on Monday the 6th of June. Kubuketa nje indzaba and as Tubulo City kubuka focus on solutions to plastic pollution under the campaign Beat Plastic Pollution. It is a reminder that people around the world should take actions on plastic pollution matters. The steps governments and businesses are taking to tackle plastic pollution are the consequence of this action. Now to discuss this development further, I am joined in studio by Mr. Gcina Isaac Dladla. He is the Eswatini Environment Authority Executive Director. A very warm welcome to our program. Namhlekuseni siqolisa kakhulu konvusa ngetingwede ebusika kubalukhuni man lo.
Most welcome kuni siyabonga ukusumema emsakadweni.
Kabatseli sibonile umsebenzi omkhulu itolo. I think what was most interesting to me was realizing ukuthi there's a multi-sectoral representation. We saw government ministries, I think foremost nje government environmental affairs sibonile ndibona Honorable Mr. Moses Vilakati, sibonile Ministry of Agriculture, sabona members of the diplomatic corps bo UN were represented there. as well as water aid. I think kusipha nje a situational report ekutheni masikhuluma nge-plastic pollution la ngwane sinelinyeva lelingakanani ukuthi-ke why le multi-sectoral representation.
Sibonga Mnguni, lengacala ngako kulo ukuthi the brief history yalelanga le World Environment Day libuya ku UN General Assembly 1972 where the whole issue of pollution became clear for everyone to see there is a need for action. Now coming to the issue of plastic pollution, in nature plastic value chain is such that it's in several sectors, because you have your private sector, the industry, you have the users, you have the regulators. So, but by its nature, the value chain of plastic, it's in a way would see even le multi-sectoral collaboration job obonile idol. Nalagitsi vele sebeda netinhlangothi letehlukene lalapho sizama kona kweda le mitamo ukuthi how we can address the problem yalo plastic njoba wati bezwethu.
Yeah. Mkabatheli indvuna Moses Vilakati ngicala ngayo ngoba ithelelana kakhulu nemsebenzini yendaba tiko lakhe. Ngifuna kuyiquote ithi despite numerous educational campaigns and environmental sustainability supported by international conventions and protocol on sustainable environmental practices, plastic pollution has persisted. Thus pushing the world to the precipice of an environmental catastrophe. Sisayibuka ipersista sithombe sayo nje la kangwane sime kanjani ngoba ngibuka nasikhuluma ngema emissions, which is something le cishe be unrelated kancane, but still there is a relationship. Live la kangwane only contributes 0.07 I think washo kanjalo to the global world emissions. Masithi ke World Environment Day, obviously we will look at it domestically, but also it is a global commemoration. Engabe sicontribute kanganani kulokungcolisa lokho kwe plastic pollution?
You see, currently there are 3 major environmental problems facing the world.
Right.
We call it the triple planetary crisis: climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution.
Okay.
Now, nasibuyela ku pollution, it is clear that plastic pollution is amongst the leading concerns lakhona.
Yes.
Njoba ngikhuluma nje, the world was gathering in Paris last week after a resolution ya UN last year yokuthi akube ne agreement yokuthi kutacklishwe le issue of plastic head on.
Right.
So for us, based on what the minister was saying, he was just underlying the fact yokuthi there have been several attempts. Sicale kubohlobo Swaziland, seseta kubophatha sakho, senda kubo clean Eswatini, senda ma clean up campaigns every day, we sizamala ma recycling initiatives.
Right.
All those things are very important, but angeke tima silver bullets, because the problem is in multiple strategies. Kungako nale issue awareness, sharing the information as we were doing yesterday. It's very, very crucial, because at the end of the day, when you talk about plastic, it's more about the lifestyle. We had to say nasukula thine skule side of the plastic li checkers. You know why that was the case? Because the first plastic that came into our market later in the checkers. So it's something we can unlearn and really learn. That's what we're trying to do as well in a campaign Yapata Sako, because we have to shift and bring the innovation in terms of that.
Yeah. Society the reason why I want to highlight the situational report here, I would see lombukele ekhaya atazi nakafundziseka asithole kahle lesithombe sokuthi okay le nkinga ithelana nezinto letiningi kangaka. We've alluded to indzaba ye multi-sectoral representation itolo. Ngiyafuna singene emathunjini ayo one by one. Simbonile agriculture, sasikhulumile environment. Simbonile agriculture. Agriculture ungenaphi indzaba te pollution lo mnyati buta ekhaya. Kudla kwakhe ukuthi kabeteka kanjani in terms of kudla nje evela kangwane.
You see the nature of plastic pollution, ema pathways ayo of concerns. Nglawa ukuthi le plastic, when it breaks down, doesn't biodegrade, but it breaks down into microplastics. Lawo ma microplastics lala fike abese aba deadly khona is when they get into the food chain. How they get into the food chain ngokuthi lo mhlaba lesilima kuwo kudla gets contaminated with plastic.
Okay.
And by so doing, some Ghana food chain. And all of those things to my concerns. See, I had to get me and you would see many farmers in the country lose a lot of livestock through direct ingestion of plastic. Tingomo nyalo ngena busika nje. Tingomo tabe tidle ama plastic. Timbuti tidle ama plastic. You know ukuthi for liswati kuluza ingomo lisekude ingomo lengaphansi kwa 10,000 yeah. So ukuthi utawuluza ingomo uluze liso plastic lelahlwe umuntu ngebudlapha kuyi concern lenkulu. That's why we were happy ukuthi induna yelitiko la agriculture isukumele etulu nelibandla layo lenzaba yawujoyina lo msebenzi besinawo utolo just to share that message as well as a country.
Yeah. And ngijabulile nekuva I think baka water aid I think yathelelana nalo itsinzako now thina nje indzaba ya livestock bas highlightele some of the things that abathi quoteile ukuthi I think in Zimbabwe where about 12 elephants ayafa ingesta nje plastic a year. That is very scary. Mcanisa umlimi nje ekhaya umlimi wakangwane ufuna kumthuse kakhulu lokhu afundzise abantwana ukuthi ama plastic singawalahli kona naye angalahli phasi. Lokhu bese ke kungijabulisa kakhulu ngama developments ayitolo ngoni kuva and angibi bias ngenzaba yesibongo umnguni Mr Mkhatshwa EA board chairperson uthi nzenza ukuthi ema soft initiatives have only taken us so far in combating plastic pollution. Wathi nyalo indzaba lenkhulu lokufuna ukuthi shangathi sonke singacommita kuyo ukuthi kuformulate a legislation that will talk to me about this development.
Well, I think you will recall is with ukuthi 2012 sashaya umthetho othiwa ma litter regulations where we were saying umuntu now going down the street you throw some litter akube neliswati.
Right.
But 2021 iparliament lele khona ishaya umthetho lokuthiwa i-control of plastic regulations. Lo mthetho u-introduce two issues. Introduce ukuthi li plastic lesesitolo kufuna ukuthi regulatwe. Li plastic lesesitolo kufuna ukuthi indvuna yetemvelo igcine ilivalile at some point.
Okay.
Lokhu kwentiwa ukuthi lessons have shown us ukuthi out of 54 countries la Africa more than 35 or 37 now have taken serious actions towards total ban of plastic. So nathi ngalo mthetho lesiushayile wa 2021 usinika lo mcondo ukuthi vele konke lo strategies awareness recycling and all are good things that are welcome, but eventually kufuna ukuthi umthetho ne policy igcine ibe decisive on this because that's the only way probably that will solve the problem once and for all. Yes.
You've highlighted it's looking to come with two solutions lo mthetho. The first one is etitolo siphokophelele ekutheni the ban of plastics. Asathengiswa ngoba nje sisakhala ukuthi okay kunelinyeva lokuthi siyalithenga nje. Mhlawumbe ugcine nje singasalitholi. What's the second one? Kabathele.
Yeah. Leba ngifuna ukusho mnguni ukuthi i-recycling ne innovation ne alternatives dinto lesidinga ukuthi sithi support.
Okay.
So kungako thina njengelibandla ikakhulu nahulumende sisiyezama lokufuna opportunities where we can encourage young people to innovate in terms of alternatives. Ubonile nasento umkhankaso waphatha sakho uthi bomake labathunga letikhwama ngibo lesibasekela kakhulu ukuthi abathunga letikhwama tibe khona nathi sitithenga. We need to invest more on those initiatives so that lama alternatives abe khona. In other economies plastic vele alisekho. Na uhamba nje uyesitolo na ungasiphatha isikhwama sakho utadibona ukuthi utawenda njani. So that's where we want to go because really plastic lisesilibonile umthelela walo in the environment ukuthi ungakanani na ku economy nje as a whole, so we can really do with alternatives to a plastic.
Yeah. Ngihlala ngesina ngiyawuthenga lapha etitolo zama kuphuma nje as a team nasiyofuna abo breakfast one colleague of mine hlala ngibotha na ulithenga iplastic.
Yeah.
Ngiyangibona ukuthi le plastic ngawuphuma yalo ngene emotini yasemsebenzini. Ngakuphatha lokho uthengako for about 12 steps ngemoto ngifika em17 ngiyadla sengilifaka emgconyeni. Kunekukabi logical kahle nekuba counterproductive ekutheni vele ngendani kahle ngiyabona ukuthi by the time sayifika lenzaba ukuthi we got the total ban of plastics, it might just be feasible from where I'm standing, but I know labanye abantu basetawukhala ngako lokho. Ngabe manibuka what's the alternative in terms of abantu baphathe indvodaba?
Yeah, well, lesikubonile na ngalomsebenzi waphatha sakho. These are some of the things besifuna ukuthi test asibone lokuthi i-economy yethu i-reacta njani. We have seen ukuthi eMaswati asakwemukele ukuthi you can do your shopping without necessarily depending on plastics. So le practice yokuphatha kwama, it's an acceptable practice now in our shopping actually experience as a country. So definitely plastic is not that essential now. But ke sibonile ukuthi bakhona laba bakhanza ukuthi iseselikhulu lokubangena umkhanza umuntu asathenga plastic every day alikhohlwe nalesikhwama asithenge angena esitolo lesinye aphinda athenge lesinye. These are things that we need to learn, but it won't take time. We'll get used to it.
And it's certainly unlearning is a learning process itself. And now phones are ukukhohlwa sibonile ezikoleni ungako bohluphasa uhlufail ukabatseli nitsinza indzaba yema mindful daily actions to conserve the environment. I think lawa are critical ngoba nangale ka mas reduce abo carbon emissions yasho ukuthi there's a role that you can play every day. Ngabathini laba mindful daily recommendations learn now ekutheni if we're conserving the environment into kufuna ngipractice emihla yonke nje.
You see, the doctrine of protecting the environment and the philosophy of conservation as a whole is ekuthenini umuntu as an individual iqala ngawe land njengoba kunyalo nje sisebenza nemadolobha lafana bombabani. We are encouraging lokuthi tibi for instance uthi now ti separate ekhaya vele ungathifaka endzawonye. What we are calling separation at source. Loko kwendela loko ukuthi usupport loko ukuthi nangabe loko kuma recyclables utawahamba kuyo recyclishwa kufakwa la lafana kwakufaka khona. Loko biodegradable utawahamba kuyo compost. So those are the things that should start at home. Start with the young ones. The other day my daughter I sent them to the shop who's about botsenga single. And then they saw a car, a little child was in the car. What she got plastic over the window, and then my daughter started talking to this girl. So those are the things that we need to start teaching the young ones as well. So that's why I told you we're happy to also have kids, play events, school kids, because these are the people who actually TikTok. So these are the habits we need to encourage amongst the young ones, so that we can learn these new practices that support our environment.
Ngaleswati sakithi imgabathile sithi ligoshola sesemanje siswathi sihlangana kakhulu ngoba vele umfana usesegalebule my habits kulula ukuthi swa inculcate asesemncane at grassroots level. Kunenzaba ke lenkulu nasikhuluma ngeplastic pollution. I think the general understanding to eviewa kunal plastic lapha esitolo maybe nelphepha ke nawo udla ema chips, but kunenzaba lenkulu ema nappies le ngathi I-chain yayo sikhanza ukuthi contaminated for lesinenge kwawona lamandla lesiwadlako kwana umdzala sokhanza nathi manje lasangcolile. Talk to me about illegal disposal or noma ngasho ukuthi illegal angithi nje i-negligence ye disposal yema nappies siyayitfola ukuthi yangena emifuleni.
Uthi indzaba lenkulu Ncumalo, indzaba yemanabukeli lawa ema dispose headache lenkulu for the country. But ke akusi disposal kuphela. I think we are struggling with a design problem. Because lama nabukeli ngekusetshenziswa kwawo are designed ukuthi anetiningi letima components abo. Kunalo lokuyigel, kunale plastic, kunaloksa. So the combination at a design a philosophy yale navigate it's ngiyole lebese sinika inkinga lenkulu ku disposal ngoba uyathi ukuthi nale makhaya na uyithi ufaka emgodzini ingcene noma ipit latrine kuyakukhumuka le nto umthoyi igcwale ngelanga. So all of those things are design problems, but ke lokunye lokukhulu ngilenzaba illegal disposal la kithi le sikakhulu kuma peri urban areas la emicashweni. It's a major problem. Joba uvile na itolo our colleagues from the water sector lokuthi vele it's a major source of contamination. Imifula leminingi na wa test lamandi vele uyakhanza lokuthi anawo lamangcoliso and isource lenkulu ngilama nabukeli lahlwa la itiwashing. Kungaba kuwacela nje eMaswati ukuthi asikugweme lokuwalahla ikakhulu emifuleni nasendzaweni lekungafanele lamanabukeli. While we are looking at the long-term solution, njengoba ngisho ukuthi it's a design problem, lesidinga ukuthi sigcine siyitholile solution even at the global level. I'm happy to see there is an experience, an experiment that we are going to pilot Elutze,
okay,
where we are bringing in reusable nappies.
Is it?
La from a design point of view, akisha fane nalama dispose, but wona ane lining la ngekhathi. Lo mntwana nangabe asamanti ukhipha only the lining, but the outside part of the nappy you retain and reuse. So more like waterproof, it's waterproof.
Yeah, that's
so but these are almost similar, as convenient as these ones.
Yeah.
But the only difference is the lining like a organic. You remove you can even flush down the toilet because it's something like a tissue.
Okay.
Keep up. So that's what we are trying to encourage from a design and a practice change point of view. Because this one,
yeah, that's an interesting development. It sounds very sustainable, and I'm really looking forward to going born as September.
Maybe next time I should bring it to the studio so I can show it and demonstrate.
Definitely, I'm holding you to it. But in September, I was never tinzaba. But I'll call now to behambe about table manic pilot lay on the ground. But then that's like selling the structure. Bila cool ngaba sibana gets the advantage where good school manga go in detail. Mbo understand the gahle. Usatsinza nenzaba my recommendations. Kwale linyeva. Bakhuluma ngalo kakhulu nakulamanye amave linyeva ke lelitsinza health sector, the disposal of tinto tasetibhedlela. There's quite a lot of letima plastic lapha from ngomishana table that made of plastics, imijovo leminye inema plastic nama plastic kunengakhulu na kuyingoti kakhulu engabe nikhoneleni ukuthi buketa letinzaba lethu.
Utsinza lenye le insumansumane ngumalo I healthcare risk waste, as we classify it, it's another stream of concern for us in the country. I'm happy with the Minister of Health. Last year they were busy with the strategy, just focusing on how best healthcare risk waste can be managed and be handled in the country. We are also still talking to our partners, looking for more resources to support the health sector, particularly with infrastructure. We manage our waste. Healthcare facilities, particularly your infectious waste, so that we can have efficient disposal facilities. Depending on incinerators, but we have an efficiency problem. Most of them incinerators are akasebenzi efficiently. Lokusho ukuthi le TB noma batfaka atishi to the level if nangabe tisha ngayo to our satisfaction, and also avoiding letting food lesiyasibone even in some of the facilities leswati or even here in Baban. So that's the challenge we have. So what we need to do then, working with the Minister of Health, we need to find more capital so that we invest on this, so that when we have incinerators are efficient. What now for imijovo lapho emasharps whatsoever infectious waste utawusha letinto kuphume vele kungasisiko infectious at all. So that's what we need to do. But we also need to try and deal with the issue of illegal dumping and disposal of this waste. You remember what's early this year, we had cases where kukhona TB letatholakala lahliwe lakubozulwini nakubogeke nakubongwane park letiqhamuka khona esibhedlela imijovo kanze abantwana sebadlala ngayo. Singacela ke lapho lokho ukuthi ama facilities onke letibhedlela noma ama private noma ahulumende bonke labantu labathatha labanikwa ama contract athatha TB etibhedlela kube bantu labane license lebuya ebandleni la environment authorities to wathi lawo bantu lawo ba trained bathatha ilahla le TB noma bathatha englisha ngendlela lesemthethweni. Angathathi TB umuntu abese usithele ehlathini uyakhwacela uyatilahla knowing ukuthi imali soyitholile, because those are putting impilo demaswati at risk.
Telling 8 minutes before 7, it's a traffic update.
Sure.
I just want your quick recommendations as wrap up and once more. Plastic pollution. Maswat for now end.
Lengakusho mnguni ukuthi ithi inkulumo everywhere la kune problem khona kune solution. Where there's a problem kune opportunity.
Right.
i-issue ye-TB ma-plastic nako konke itolo nalamhla most people bakubuka njengenkinga kuphela but it's a huge opportunity, it's a big industry Nxumalo. I was in the meeting in France last week where we discovered that this is more than $500 billion industry plastic. So even if the world can take a third of that market share, shift it to another solution, whether alternative technologies, alternative solutions, that's what we need to do. Emaswati siyafuna lokwa encourage ikakhulu abantu labasha, let's innovate, let's support my livelihoods, let's find a way of creating jobs using this problem. We've seen it already. There are big companies. We have more than 50 registered recycling companies in the country. Cashe Maswati kuyasetshenzwa. We want to see more because akusilo plastic phela inkinga ye-TB inkulu. We need more actually participation by Maswati in this.
God, so thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sweet.
That was Mr. Gcina Isaac Ladla providing his insights and Zabin Dayoge pollution, particularly plastic pollution. Le beyibuketwe njengesiqubulo ke langeni la itolo lapho khona becommemorate ayona i-World Environment Day. Kuteke lokunengi lekungakungeda, I think ube comprehensive waba succinct wavakala konke lokhu beka si recommendela kona usibetele ke netinkinga letikhona lapha events. Ayisala ngawe ke ngoyo lomuhle indzaba yethu sonke lena sibahlwe market nasibuya sichubeke nehlelo.
Do you remember the spinning thing? This is us. This picture represents what we did. We were there when coronavirus wreaked havoc in our population. Together with other stakeholders, we formed the first line, controlling the spread of the unknown and unseen enemy of the people. Anxious ourselves, we collected dead bodies countrywide. At the time when no one wanted to come near dead bodies of loved ones, we did care for our fellow citizens. Thank you, the people of Eswatini and teams of first responders.
Malambule sikwamukela licingweni lomuhla siphe yona i-traffic update lomuhla ekuseni ngabe uthi bachubeka imoto lo bacaphele yini nomhle emigwaqweni.
Phela mina ngijekile ukuthi angishayela edena but ke naso decide
Malambule siphindze sikwamukele ehlelweni kusile breakfast show lomhla ekuseni engabe ubaxwayisa ubathini lamhla bachubi bethu imoto lo basachuba imoto le emigwaqweni. Beka setame kuchumana naye ake setame nje kwekugcina kwabani sikuvuselele lomhla ekuseni ehlelweni kusile breakfast show engabe nisasebenza emigwaqweni nitfoleni ithini traffic update nisipha yona namhla ekuseni. Muhle sixolise ngetinsambo letiphambene sitabahlala emakethe sitabuya sichubeke nehlelo.
Kubhalisela lukhefo sekuqalile. Ngakho ke faka isandla ekwakheni uhulumende wakho ngekuthi ubhalise. Bhalisela lukhefo estation sekubhalisa lesisedvute nawe. Kubhalisa kutawugcina amatili 14 inhlaba kulosetulu. 14 June 2023. Ungasali. Zakha live letfu.
Using an ATM is a simple process. You simply insert your card, punch in your PIN, and withdraw your cash. However, this simple process can open up you and your finances to some dangers. So it is very important that you proceed with caution when using the ATM and never share your PIN. When approaching the ATM, it is very important that you have your card ready, either in your hand or in your pocket, so that you do not waste time going through your belongings, either your wallet or your handbag, as this will give opportunities for thieves to act. Thirdly, put your money away immediately. Don't give anyone an opportunity to grab your cash or your card after a withdrawal. Lastly, always take your receipt after each and every transaction. It is important that you get your slip after every transaction because it contains crucial information about your balances, and that may lead you to be a victim of bolandela. Be cyber aware, be cyber smart.
Sehlelweni lethi lithini libandla siyambonga uNkulunkulu uhlelo liphindze libuyele emoyeni.
Basically ngingathi nje empeleni yabona uNkulunkulu nakadala umhlaba including bantu.
Leti khathi leti tethenjisiwe mawufunda incwadi yaJohn chapter 16 verse number 33.
The way the gospel has been portrayed mayilethwa la kubantu yabo yende ukuthi abantu babe offended.
Sikholwa futhi ukuthi sidaphinde siba nabo evikini lelitako sikhulumisa yona le ndzaba lesikhuluma ngayo emsakadweni wakho Eswatini TV isibuko semaswati.
Ayijesuke kama lakho likhulu Jesuke
Welcome back. Let's take a look at our international news. We start in Moscow, where it has Moscow said to have been repelling a large-scale offensive by Ukrainian forces in the occupied Donetsk region, with some 250 Ukrainian soldiers that have been killed and dozens of vehicles destroyed. However, Ukraine has not confirmed that attack and has kept quiet over whether a much-anticipated counter-offensive has begun.
This grainy drone footage, released by Russia's defense ministry overnight, is, it claims, the start of Ukraine's counter-offensive in eastern Donetsk. The smoke you can see in the fields, said to be Ukrainian tank divisions being destroyed. And this, the moment of a direct strike. An operation from 5 separate fronts that failed, says Moscow, publishing this statement claiming victory.
Своих задач противник не добился.
The enemy did not achieve its tasks. It had no success. As a result of capable and calculated actions of the groups of forces in the east, the Ukrainian army suffered losses of more than 250 people, 16 tanks, 3 armoured personnel carriers, and 21 armoured vehicles.
There's been no comment from Kyiv. But plans love silence was the message from Ukraine's defense ministry in this video, published on social media on Sunday, warning speculation could help the enemy. Hours before that, President Zelensky told a newspaper his country is now ready to recapture territory occupied by Russia. He said he's constantly meeting NATO allies, demanding more weapons and air defences, adding they couldn't wait for months. In recent weeks, Russia has found itself defending its own territory, with multiple attacks here in Belgorod, a key border region for supply lines. 2 Russian paramilitary groups supporting Ukraine claim responsibility for the attacks on energy installations and fuel depots, amongst other targets. Analysts describe these attacks as Ukraine shaping operations, trying to create the conditions on the battlefield and beyond that gives the best chance of winning on the ground. Whether the counter-offensive has started or is about to may not be clear for some time.
United States troops have been training Ukrainians since before the war, but the Pentagon has tightly restricted media access to the training. We take a look at an exclusive training mission that has been out of the public view until now.
This is the first footage ever released of U.S. military forces training Ukrainians following Russia's brutal invasion. U.S. forces have trained more than 10,000 Ukrainian troops since April 2022. And these are 3 of the Task Force Gator soldiers who made that training happen.
It became very overwhelming for me because I'm just like, okay, we have a mission, but I'm just not sure how we're going to get this done.
We literally had a soldier waiting at the border as they came across the Ukrainian border. We had a Task Force Gator soldier there to receive them, fly with them all the way to Germany, ate and slept with them, went out to the training area with them, came back, brought them all the way back to the border, waved goodbye to them, told them to give them hell.
You guys ready to go?
The training in Germany got its start at a remote base in western Ukraine, where National Guard forces from across the United States had been training Ukrainian soldiers since 2015. But on February 12th of last year, as Russian forces built up on the border, the U.S. troops received a dreaded order: evacuate from Ukraine.
We didn't want to leave them, quite frankly. It was tough. We just, we'd been preaching that our whole mission revolved around supporting them.
It was one of the most difficult days. It was sad and disappointing.
In less than 40 hours, Task Force Gator was gone. Russia invaded Ukraine 10 days later.
Didn't feel great. We're not doing anything, but we could be helping.
But less than 2 months after the invasion, as the U.S. sent more lethal weapons to Ukraine, Glass and his team received a new order.
We need to figure out how to train Ukrainians on them, and it needs to happen this week. And we need Ukrainians shooting 777s in the next 10 days.
M777 howitzers, like the ones in this video obtained by VOA of training in Germany last spring. The Ukrainian soldiers arrived from the battlefield to receive their training. It's a moment Hagemeyer says he will never forget.
So we saw them at the border coming across, war-weary and familiar faces, and they were coming across with these shopping bags with everything they owned, maybe a spare uniform, maybe some toiletries. But to be able to give those guys hugs, it was an emotional moment.
The training in Germany expanded to include mobile rocket launchers known as HIMARS and about a dozen other weapons. Maintenance classes started too, so Ukrainians could keep the weapons working.
We had a purpose again, and it was great. It really was.
And the deployment that just weeks earlier had been one of the lowest points of these soldiers' careers now was one of the highlights.
What I do today, I see the changes on the battlefield tomorrow. And in recognizing that the implications of this for Europe and maybe the rest of the world, could last, 5, 10, 20, 40 years from now.
Your heart gets pretty big, because you know that you're giving them exactly what they need. I'm very fortunate to be a part of history, in my opinion. We made a difference.
One that has remained long after their deployment ended, and the next group of American soldiers took up the training mission.
Fighting intensified in several areas of Khartoum after a ceasefire deal expired, residents of Sudan's capital reported, and activists said a new outburst of violence in North Darfur state had left at least 40 people dead.
Gunshots and smoke in the Sudanese capital. A sign fighting has returned following the expiry of a ceasefire deal earlier this weekend.
Here, since the early morning, we have heard loud sounds of heavy artillery coming from Wadi Sayidna Air Base, which is located not far from where I am, about 10 to 15 maybe kilometers from my location. Right now, also, as I am talking to you, there are heavy clashes in Khartoum capital, especially in Khartoum central areas and in western Khartoum.
The ceasefire between the army and the RSF paramilitary force was initially agreed around 2 weeks ago and already extended once. Though there was some decrease in the intensity of the fighting, it was repeatedly violated. The truce allowed limited humanitarian access, but with 3/4 of hospitals in combat zones not functioning, the situation is dire. And it's been made even more complicated with the arrival of the rainy season. As the ceasefire expired this weekend, there were also reports of deadly violence in the northern part of Darfur, which has witnessed some of the worst battles since fighting began in mid-April. Tens of thousands of people have fled Darfur over the past weeks, crossing the border into neighboring Chad.
With gang violence plaguing the Haitian capital of Port-au-Prince, recent weeks have the rise of a group of vigilantes taking the law into their own hands using machetes and other makeshift weapons. However, the United Nations warns that vigilantism will only fuel a rise in the spiral of violence in the country.
Kusile is the name of a vigilante movement that began in late April in the Haitian capital Port-au-Prince. Its members use machetes, rocks and other makeshift weapons to target gangs. One of the members says they can no longer wait for police help or international assistance.
It's not Canada, the United States or others who will come to get us out of our situation. A machete will.
Neighborhoods involved in the movement have set up makeshift barricades, threatening people who attempt to enter. This as gang violence has overwhelmed security forces. A UN report in May said there were 1,634 cases of people killed, injured or kidnapped in the Haitian capital in the first 3 months of this year, a 28% increase on the last quarter of last year. The UN Special Envoy for Haiti says violence has reached extreme levels.
Haiti's National Police Force, despite all their efforts and all the cooperation when it comes to equipment, training and input from the international community, is not at this moment able to defend people. And so people are defending themselves.
Haiti's Center for Analysis and Research in Human Rights found that Kusile had led to a drop in kidnappings and killings in recent weeks, but warned it could worsen gang violence. One human rights lawyer blames what he called the government's incompetence and laxity for the rise of Kusile.
Le phénomène Kusile est une sorte de justice expéditive. Je me donne justice.
The Kusile phenomenon signals that people are getting their own justice. But why is the population doing that? Why? Because they've realized that the Justice Minister and Prime Minister, Ariel Henry, have no power.
The lawyer expressed concern that innocent civilians could be swept up in vigilante killings that police are unable to stop.
Loved ones and admirers are holding international commemorations for British journalists Dom Phillips and Brazilian indigenous expert Bruno Pereira, who were murdered a year ago while documenting environmental crimes in the Amazon rainforest. Here's a report.
They died working to protect the Amazon rainforest and the people who live there. British journalist Dom Phillips and Brazilian indigenous expert Bruno Pereira were brutally murdered on a reporting trip in the Amazon's Javari Valley, near the Colombian and Peruvian borders. 3 illegal fishermen have confessed to killing them, and according to the Guardian newspaper, where Phillips contributed, the alleged mastermind and leader of a transnational criminal organization has also been charged. Meanwhile, the man who was Jair Bolsonaro's indigenous affairs chief at the time was charged with an indirect role in the murders. Brazilian President Lula da Silva has blamed his predecessor for encouraging environmental crimes and promised justice.
In the name of a sovereign Brazil, the planet, and the legacy and memory of Dom and Bruno, we're fighting to revive policies to protect indigenous peoples and the Amazon rainforest.
But that fight is facing serious opposition from Brazil's powerful farming lobby and the conservative majority Congress. Last week, they passed bills that would limit the power of Lula's new Ministry of Indigenous Peoples and make it harder to recognize indigenous lands.
Guarani people are here marching and fighting against these genocide and ethnocide laws that are focused on the destruction of people originally from these territories.
These bills will impact not only indigenous people, but our entire planet.
The bills still need to be approved by the Senate. Then, even if Lula refuses to sign, Congress could override his veto.
Supporters of Senegal's firebrand opposition leader Ousmane Sonko condemned police brutality after clashes over his recent court conviction left at least 16 people dead and more than 350 demonstrators injured. The government, meanwhile, has accused Sonko's supporters of vandalism and banditry during the demonstrations.
The aftermath of days of violence in Dakar. It was calmer in the capital this weekend. The government says the evidence of looting and destruction is clear, blaming extreme elements in the protest movement. A movement that spread across the country since news emerged that Ousmane Sonko, the country's main opposition leader, was sentenced to 2 years in jail. Police have since arrested 500 demonstrators.
The people who have been apprehended in the course of the unrest are mainly those who were armed and considered dangerous. Security forces have faced violent demonstrators who aren't there to express opinions. They're often involved in subversive activities.
But police are accused of brutally repressing a legitimate movement and using private militias to subdue the population. The government's also forced a social media blackout, cutting access to Twitter, WhatsApp and YouTube, claiming to stop fake news being spread. But that's not how it's being viewed by many on the streets.
Loads of protesters posted social media videos letting everyone know what's going on. That's why the state shut down the network.
I think access to information is a right, and the state has no right to encrypt our networks.
Ousmane Sonko hasn't been seen for days since being detained by police as he travelled with supporters to the courthouse to face rape charges. He was acquitted, but convicted of the crime of immoral behaviour. Supporters say it's a political plot. 2 other former rivals of President Macky Sall have also been jailed over the past decade. His office denies allegations of any link and says it's a judicial matter.
French unions will stage on Tuesday a 14th day of protests against government plans to raise the retirement age to 64 in what could be a final attempt to pressure lawmakers into scrapping a law that is already on the statute books.
Tens of thousands of people expected in the streets of Paris on Tuesday, and police forces on high alert. At this marketplace in Toulouse, opinions are divided over whether the battle against the pension reform is still worth fighting.
For me, it's a done deal. It's over.
Under President Chirac, wasn't there a law that was voted through? And then we backtracked.
250 different marches are expected across the country in what will be the 14th day of mass mobilisation. But the government is still showing no signs of backing down. On Sunday, it published the first 2 decrees for implementing the reform. That's not been enough to discourage trade unions and opposition parties, though. They say it's not too late to reverse the legislation.
We'll take a look at the 31 decrees, and as soon as we identify a legal flaw, we'll attack them. The responsibility lies with the government, who is forcefully implementing a reform against the will of a majority of MPs and the people.
Meanwhile, Parliament is gearing up to examine an article on Thursday that would reintroduce an amendment to bring back the pension age to 62 from 64. But the National Assembly's president has already threatened to rule it as ineligible for review.
Former Vice President Mike Pence filed paperwork declaring his campaign for president in 2024, setting up a challenge now to his former boss Donald Trump, just 2 years after their time in the White House ended with an insurrection at the United States Capitol and Pence fleeing for his life.
Riding his way into the presidency race, Mike Pence has officially thrown his name into the ring as a Republican candidate for 2024's presidential election. The paperwork declaring his campaign has been filed, and a formal announcement is expected on Wednesday in Iowa.
And I have to tell you, over the last 2 years, Karen and I have spent a lot of time reflecting and praying about everything in this country's dealing with and what we might do to serve. And I don't have anything to announce today, but I can tell you, when I got time to announce, come this Wednesday, I'm announcing in Iowa.
His biggest rival will, of course, be Donald Trump, the man he served as vice president between 2017 and 2021. Pence was a loyal defender of the president for those 4 years, But he's distanced himself from his old boss since the riot by Trump supporters at the US Capitol in January 2021. Trump had pressured Pence to overturn Joe Biden's election victory, which he refused. Some rioters were heard chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," as they stormed the halls of Congress, and many Trump loyalists view him as a traitor. Pence is just another name to add to an ever-growing list of Republican candidates, a list which includes Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who is seen as Trump's closest contender, as well as former Governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley. Many experts are describing this race for the Republican nomination as one of the most right-wing the party has ever seen.
Turkey's newly re-elected President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is facing the challenge of balancing ties with Russia and Western allies. Ankara's ongoing veto of Sudan's NATO membership bid is a critical test of its loyalties, and analysts suggest that Erdogan may be looking for a reset with Washington.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan takes his presidential oath for a third time, as analysts predict foreign policy will be a priority in Erdogan's bid to make Turkey a 21st century power.
We're also likely to see a continuation of this non-aligned, strategic, autonomous idea of Turkey's place in the world. President Erdogan sees Turkey as a rising power. He's built his campaign on this. 21st century, he says, will be the century of Turkey. And that Turkey is not a loyal, card-carrying member of the transatlantic community.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, attending Erdogan's swearing-in ceremony, lobbied Turkey to lift its veto of Sweden's membership bid when leaders of the alliance hold a summit next month. Stoltenberg says Stockholm has addressed Ankara's calls to crack down on terrorist groups that target the Turkish government.
Important new terrorism legislation has come into force just a few days ago. So Sweden has fulfilled its obligations.
Ankara's opposition to Sweden's membership bid comes as Ankara pledges to deepen ties with Moscow. Russian President Vladimir Putin was among the first to congratulate Erdogan's latest electoral success.
They are good friends, it's true, and Turkish-Russian relations for the next 5 years will continue to be stronger, I would say. Putin is definitely very happy that he has his friend as president again for another 5 years.
Putin gave Erdogan significant financial support during his presidential election, deferring billions of dollars in energy payments to support the beleaguered Turkish economy. But analysts suggest Erdogan could be looking to consolidate his electoral success with a diplomatic reset with Washington.
Probably Erdogan and his associates will seek a reinvigoration of the relations between the two countries on the basis of a better reception of Erdogan in Washington, D.C., probably an official visit. This is what they are expecting.
Improved Turkish-US relations may help ease financial pressures facing Turkey's economy. But some analysts warn that the poor chemistry between the country's two leaders remains an obstacle.
Turkey is a challenge for Washington, and it will continue to be a challenge. The relationship is less than ideal. In fact, it's pretty dysfunctional. It starts at the top with President Erdogan and President Biden hardly talking or hardly ever meeting.
A US-Turkey reset could depend on Ankara's stance on NATO enlargement and growing Western calls to impose sanctions on Russia, something with which Erdogan has refused to go along.
A vaccine being developed by French company Transgene that is tailored to each individual patient using artificial intelligence could help prevent relapses, says the company. The 40-50 vaccine has already been successfully tested on a sample of 16 patients with head and neck cancers and could theoretically be used to treat a variety of different cancers.
It could mark a turning point for patients dealing with a relapse of their cancer. Transgene's 40-50 vaccine is currently being tested for head and neck cancers. The aim is to stop any comeback. Already, preliminary results are encouraging. It's been successfully tested on a sample of 16 patients. What sets it apart is that it's tailor-made.
The TG4050 is unique for each patient. We actually manufacture a vaccine that responds to the characteristics of each patient's tumour. It even adapts to each patient's immune system.
Before the vaccine is administered, the tumor's genetic characteristics are analyzed. Using artificial intelligence, cancer specialists determine the 30 mutations or neoantigens that are most likely to induce an effective immune response, prompting what are known as T cells to step up their attack on cancer cells. The result is a customized vaccine. Currently, it's only being tested for recurrent head and neck cancers, but it could prove to be a significant advance.
It is highly conceivable that this technology could be applied to many cancers, because these vaccines are tailor-made for an individual by searching for mutations that are specific to each cancer.
The second test phase for the TG4050 vaccine should start in the next few months, but it could take years before it hits the market. Cancer is a leading cause of death worldwide, accounting for millions of deaths each year.
Costa Rica's cloud forest may soon no longer be worthy of the name. Climate change means there are increasingly fewer clouds drying out of the forests and threatening its flora and fauna. With June 5 marking the United Nations World Environment Day, France 24 took a closer look at the threat to this important habitat.
It is feared the cloud forest of Monteverde, Green Mountain, in the center of Costa Rica, will soon no longer be as worthy of the name. Climate change threatens the fauna and flora here. Visitors can still see lush green vegetation. However, they should be hearing moisture falling from the trees, not walking on trails that have dried out.
There's not as much cloud and there's more sun. It's not a place for sun, or it didn't used to be. We used to have around 30 sunny days a year. Nowadays, we get more than 130 a year.
This type of high-altitude forest is exceptional, accounting for only 1% of the world's tropical and subtropical areas. Rising temperatures mean that mosses have dried on tree trunks, rivers are no more than streams, and there are fears for the forest's 100 species of mammals, 440 species of birds, and 1,200 types of amphibians.
We are going to have a profound change in the nature of the ecosystems. It's possible that the cloud forest will disappear and be replaced by another type of drier forest. If we make an effort to stop climate change, it may not be back in time for our generation, but it may be back for the next generations.
That upbeat note is based on the argument that ecosystems are resilient. However, efforts to stop climate change will be vital if Costa Rica's Monteverde cloud forest is to recover.
Karim Benzema has agreed a deal to leave Real Madrid, the Spanish giants said on Sunday, with strong interest in the ex-France striker reportedly coming from Saudi Arabia.
After 14 trophy-filled years, Karim Benzema trained with his Real Madrid teammates for the last time. His departure from the club comes as a surprise, with Madrid's coach saying just hours earlier that the star forward would stay on.
He has 1 year left of his contract, so we have no doubts.
Benzema has lifted 25 trophies with the club. That includes 5 in the Champions League, as well as 4 in La Liga and 3 Copa del Rey titles. The French striker is Los Blancos' second top scorer of all time with 354 goals and is the current holder of the Ballon d'Or for the world's best player. In a statement, Real Madrid described Benzema's time at the club as brilliant and unforgettable.
Karim Benzema's career at Real Madrid has been a shining example of conduct and professionalism, and he has represented the values of our club. Karim Benzema has earned the right to decide his future.
Benzema ramped up his goal output for Real Madrid after the departure of Cristiano Ronaldo in 2018, scoring in 44 of 46 games last season and playing a crucial role in clinching a Champions League title. There's speculation Benzema could follow in Ronaldo's footsteps and move to a club in Saudi Arabia. A farewell ceremony will be held for him on Tuesday.
That marks the end of our international news. We go for a net break. Ngesimo selitulo masibuya sichubeka nehlelo.
Welcome back. Sivusele nawo sanza kuzivulela bezivedile bazingene ehlelo ukuthi isidaba esikhulumisana na project coordinator lozoka khona e-study loan recovery consortium Gugu Similane kusinika nje i-update ngayo i-repayment yema scholarship ahulumende ngeminyaka ke wa 2019 le consortium ke ya identify abamfula abangadlule kwa 26,000 as ama beneficiaries and kulabo labangu 26,000 10,000 wabo bakhona ukuthi basayine isivumelwano sekuthi batayibhadala le mali bese ke ukuthi in February, the consortium collected an amount of 65 million amalangeni as at the end of third quarter ngeminyaka wa 2018. Ngekusho ke report ya lelitiko la Labour ya December 2022 lelo office selithole imali kuma beneficiaries lenkanga 280 million kusukela ngeminyaka wa 2017 so lolaqala kusebenza. So ke namhla sidaba nje sibuka nje the overview of the project, the compliance in my beneficiaries kanye ke nama strategies sebenziswa ngelo office ukuthola labo labasolo bangatholakali labakuvetako ukuthi bafuna ukuthi labo labasolo babaleka bangayibhadali imali yahulumende bafuna ukuthi bangakhona ku-accessa lusido lwahulumende kepha kuyiteka kabantu sesivele sinaye lapha Gugu atosichazela ukuthi ngabe basho ukuthini ingako lokho siyakuvusela Gugu. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think ngomenjena singaqala ngayo indzaba yemsebenzi solona qala ngeminyaka 2017 ukuthi ingabe senisebenze kanjani sekusebenzeka kanjani. I think le report yaveta nje lokho ukuthi since 2017 senithola imali lenganga 280 million kusebenzeke kanjani nje over the years.
Ngiyabonga Lulu, ngiyavusela nesive emakhaya kusukela kuqala iproject nga March 2017 njengoba soshido sesikwele imali enganga 280 million and lokusijabulisa kakhulu ngeperiod ye COVID la tonke into betehla khona imisebenzi and all that thina sikhosontham sichubekile sakweleka ngendlela lenhle kakhulu lokungiyinye nje highlight lesinayo ukuthi cha siuphushile umsebenzi ngalesikhathi lesibi lapho umhlaba wonke bobhekene nekushona phasi kwesimo ngekusebenza nje Lulu siba nema strategies ezingishito nje saqala 2017 ezike usebenza uyabona ukuthi okay lokhu kuyasilungela lokhu kuyasebenza lokhu ngasebenzi sesingasebenza kanjani to overcome phela sisendele ukuthi wonke umuntu agcine abhadala ngekusebenza kwethu ke bakhona laba vele laba willing bakhona labo sithi siyabashayela kumbe siyaba-approacha babe willing bese baba khona ke nalaba labangafuni noma sewufikile kuye akubhekiselena nalena so i-consortium ke ibese seyabuka nje kuma-strategies la khona ukuthi okay mhlambe lamanye sesiwa-exhaustile but solokude so sikhulumisana nelitiko lelisicashile i-Ministry of Labour and Social Security ukuthi ngabe ngetela sibambisa yini ukuthi kulaba labangafuni loku kusibambisa ngekuthi bacale phela babhadale njengoba isicubulo sethu sithi sishilana ligwayi kutemfundo so that the next child naye atokhona kufunza sikhulumisana nayo ke i-ministry ukuthi ingabe masingathi uhulumende nangabe umuntu asesithi nje lo benefitile uyofuna kumbe lusito ku ministry tsite aqale ahlolwe kuqala kuthiwe nje okay Lulu makagula siyakubona la system ngathi owa scholarship ngabe asocala uyojika ka scholarship uyolungisa indzaba takho ubese ke uyabuya asikaceleke uhulumende ukuthi akavale sithi nje umuntu akahlolwe kuqala angaka access but nje lokhu kusesetinkulumo lesinato ngeke nganze kuko kakhulu ukuthi ngitiphile ihlelo but nje sicelile sibekile licembe ku ministry yethu ukuthi uyathi sesikuzamile lokhu lokunye sicabanga ukuthi ngiko lokungasida.
Ngifuna nje clarity ukuthi nitamjikisa lo muntu agcina ngakalithola lusito noma mhlambe nitawucala nimtshele mhlambe kucala as a first warning ukuthi lungisa indzaba takho nebaka scholarship nikhulumisana
ngiyabonga Lulu kuhlukile njengoba nama services ahlukile ikhona le service ukuthi vele angayithola namuhla awucha so vele uyitfolile ngeke asabuya ikhona le service ukuthi vele utamkhoshina uthi eyicaphela lapha kunenkinga ubovakashela scholarship aphinza abuye kusasa kumbe uthi eyicaphela la scholarship sola kasothi sekwesibili bese ke ekugcineni vele but ke ngekhulumisana kwethu nahulumende phela ukuthi labakhulumisana nabo ezilamatiko lamanye labuke leto tindzawo bavuma kuthini but nje inhloso yethu ngolokuthi vele ngeke phela ukuthi sofuna sitola hulumende kepha hulumende uyamowa ulufuna njani phela lelisito asawucala ulungise indlela takho lokhu kahle asisho ukuthi khipha yonke le mali yenda nje lesivumelwane uqale ubhadale ke ngenyanga njengoba bonke abantu benda
losho ukuthi guguna ngabe bamfu basole bacuba inkhane batathanza mhlambe nasekuhambe vele kwafika ekugcineni batathanza nje nabafuna nje ngibekisa nabafuna ama license discs bangakhona ukulithola lelo sitolo ngabekisa mhlambe ngaleyo service leyo ukuthi mabafika nje umfaka ubhadale license disc yakhe bamtshela ukuthi cha phela wena solo ukweleta uhulumende solo uyabaleka nathi ke ngesikhona ukukunikeza lelo sitolo
kunjalo Lulu vele sekuthi nje ngeke ngikhone lokusho leti inhlelo but vele utawukhulunyiswa umuntu ukuthi cha ke kukahle nje lokho bekusanga ngoba license disc ngicaka ukuthi ngeminyaka so noma ungaphunyula sesithi kulomnyaka lo but next year uyabona but nje sifuna lokuthi asifisi nalokuthi kufike lapho bantu nje babe compliant bavele phela i-application yabo le usebenzisile yendela lo munye ke umvana naye lophume high school ukuthi akhone kufunza njengoba nawe ufunzile ungabe senje ngoba wena sofunzile sothi how asebemi kancane lapha baka scholarship.
Okay uvetile lapha indzabe ukuthi I think niqalile kusemena 2017 bo 2019 kwaba khona lokho kubhethuka kwe COVID-19 mhlambe labanye balahlekelwa imisebenzi nibabambise kanjani ngoba ngiyathi ukuthi vele simo sabamadima kakhulu kulabanye bangasakhoni vele kondla ngisho nemindeni yabo kukhona inidi ivumelano lenatenda nabo ukuthi mhlambe batawuphenza babuyela babhadale nasabatfolelwe imisebenzi noma babhadale netigaba ngitiphi nje ivumelano labahlangabeta kanjani labo.
Okay Lulu ngeCovid vele bekunhlalu letinkinga tebantu kukhona laba ukhanza ukuthi bekaphelelwa ngilomsebenzi vele totally sekude ukuthi utawukhona kuchubeka abhadale bakhona labo ukhanza ukuthi leli holo bese liyehla labo ke kulaba labangasasebenzi vele bese siyasimisa lesivumelwane sekuthi abhadale phela bese bathi siyam encourage ukuthi mase utholile umsebenzi ubuye uchubeke ubhadale. Sike sabeka nje iperiod sabona ukuthi cha bantu simo sengase sibuyele sabuyela ke kubo sabachecka ukuthi oh wawuthi umsebenzi uphelile sekunjani labanye ke soluphelile labanye babuyela ke bachubeka babhadala bese kuba ngilabo ke lengishido ukuthi khanda ukuthi imali bese yihalf sebo 70% ngeke asakhona ukubhadala le mali bekasola ibhadala so sethi ke kuloyo akayinciphise but nabo sabe sesiyabuyela kubo ukuthi phela simo sesikahle asibuyele sibhadale but nje lesik encourage ukuthi noma ngabe umsebenzi usede kwanyalo divide phela consortium usho ukuthi ngikhona ngabenefita ngicela kumanene ngibhalise noma nikunadisa nje ukuthi ngisengakasebenzi kwanyalo lokho kuyasita kusitaphi ke kusita ukuthi naso utfolile lo msebenzi ungabe sesowela kunale bandla leli bese libreacha le agreement study loan agreement lesithi kufuna ubhadale 50% within 3 months of employment wena bese uba nalomusa ukuthi phela vele bungasebenzi uyabona so ngikho encourage kakhulu ukuthi longasebenza akadivete naye
lokuthinathi nje lokuthi ukhona but usengasebenzi nasacela ukusebenza tabe siyanadisa
yes kumqoka kakhulu usingcizelele ukuthi nase usebenza bese uyabuya because lokhu bese kuyendeka kulabanye ubese uyasebenza athi asengibambe mathuba kanti so uyatonela phela lo 3 months so elapsa so ngena automatically 100% as stipulated by the study loan agreement
so nakaqala kusebenza usese fortunate ukuthi angakhona ukubhadala 50% within lo 3 months abaqala kusebenza kwecela 3 months utobhadala
wecela 3 months contract ithi hulumende uneligunya to demand full payment of le scholarship so kumcoka nje kakhulu ukuthi kulabo labasanza kusebenza avele ngamane negotiate ke ukuthi inhlelo tekubhadala ukuthi kumbe imali inciphe uyabo bathi nje akede ngoba angahlala kwecelo lo 3 months vele se I contract le ma terms and conditions bese sekayangena yes
so speaking of leti inhlelo nje tekubhadala ithini vele kahle because I think lo munye vele utawasaba ukuthi hey mina sola ngakweleta mhlambe ngibekise 60,000 ngambhadala kanjani 60,000 kani ngihola 2.5 ithini le arrangement between lama beneficiaries nani ne consortium ngiyakhona nikhokha 200 ngibekise per month what is the minimum amount that I'm obligated to pay
kulikhona lo ukuthi ngabeka iminimum because letikweleti debantu ezwadi ukuthi ema courses akafani ngepricing yakhona akhona ama courses laladule kakhulu and kuya dependa ukuthi ufunze kuphi khona ufunze medicine khona ufunze lokungasiko lokudule kakhulu so leti imali ngeke difane la monthly installment in fact le monthly installment iba calculated ukuthi ufunze isikhathi lesingakanani nalokuthi le mali ingakanani but ke kuba khona ukuthi yebo mhlambe uyifunzile le course lesetulu sekufuna ubhadala imali lesetulu yakubona ngeke bese sikufaka liphaca nangabe mhlambe solethile lokho lokufana bo payslip kuthi cha njengoba ushido ngihola 2.5 sithi sina cha khipha phela 1.2 noma 600 noma imalini siyakhulumisana unawe usho letinkinga takho ukuthi cha mina ngakhona lena because of 123 sibuke kumbe lama proof ukuthi vele ngoba phela kufuna sisebenze ngalokubhalwe phasi usho ukuthi vele usho sibili ukuthi lona wenda lokhu naloku ngeke afford le mali le but nje lokukhulu kakhulu ukuthi siyakhulumiseka ungavela inhlelo tekubhadala ke uyabhadala through umcashi kuya ngekuthi lo mcashi uyawenda ke lama third party deductions aka scholarship labanye abawendi bese sewubhadala nange debit order uyafuma utosayina nje le form lakho ubese sofaka ama banking details akho uchoose I date lekulungilako siba nema dates la ngi4 kunamhla ka10 mhla ka20 25 and 30 uchoose ukuthi wena ulingela ngiphi lengakhuthatha nje ukuthi emaswati phela ubochuza le date lobadike ukuthi vele ingile date le maybe after kuhola kwakho lesonzele kakhulu ungabe senje ukuthi uhola mhla ka20 wena sofaka 30 bese siyakubona ukuthi vele mase sifika mhla ka20 I mean 30 ukhanza ukuthi imali sekude so siyagcizelela ukuthi ke mfaka ngale ngale date lowatiko ukuthi cha liholo lami vele lisube selikhona lapha.
So wayithinta nje vele lendzaba leyo ukuthi mangabohola mhla ka20 bese ufaka idate yamhla ka30 bese senikhanze ukuthi sekude le mali. Now utawukhanze ukuthi lokho sekunteka mhlambe tinyanga letintsatfu tilandzelana. Kule yesithathu nina njani vele nithathe yato tonke letinyanga letintsatfu noma nje solo niyachubeka nje nihamba ngala pace le nithatha monthly kunteka kanjani bese niyabona ukuthi hayi lo sosibalekela kakhulu sesithatha nje yonke le ya 3 months.
Unfortunately lo mthetho wethu awusivumeli ukuthi sende kanjalo sichubeka nje sithathe le yenyanga but ke siyakhuthata manje ukuthi ngoba phela ungagcina mhlambe sekufike lapho ukuthi nje bantu babe compliant uyabona athi nje ukuthi ngivume ngendele isivumelwano lesi sekuthi mhla ka30 kube ngumhla ka30.
Okay. So ngifuna kubutela labo labathola mhlambe ama scholarships katseni boma 1960s 1970s because bakhona labo nabo niyabathola invele baya comply nibona baya divide nibona and basekhona emissionini.
Bakhona Lulu siyabakhuthaza nabo ukuthi bavele masacala le project kube khona ukuthi ukhanza ukuthi masibahlole emshineni bebangekho lokho ke kwakubanga ukuthi mhlambe nangale statistics lethu baqala kufunza vele kwakudilwa ngalama fayela so information ayikho system isemafayeleni but ke lokukahle ngale project yethu ukuthi kunale kule section ukuthi scanner the actual files alama students so bese siyabatfola ke bese nangabe besimtshelile ukuthi asikakutfole sisiyamthinta siyamshayela ukuthi make makagula i-information yakho seyikhona na imali leyo owako so ngabhadala lokhu kahle ke abantu abadzala baya comply uvele nje akafuni inkinga uvele abhadale ngaleso sikhathi and the arrangement ngaleso sikhathi ukuthi imali yakhe ithathwe acithe scholarship.
Okay, so labo la sewukhanze ukuthi sebapentshelwe ke bona ni abadedela ukuthi ano sale bangasayibuyisa imali bondeka kanjani kulabo vele
indzaba yabapentshelwe sisayimikise etiko leli sicashile lo Ministry of Labour and Social Security ukuthi ingabe singenda kanjani kubo uyasivumela yini lo mthetho ukuthi singabakweleka but kwanyalo bizi sengakabagweleki sikweleka nje kulabo laba gainfully employed lesatiko ukuthi makuphela inyanga uyavela efastelweni lelibhange atfole lokuncane.
So bakhona laba ensolweni ngakhona kubatfola vele laba benefits akatseni vele.
Yes bakhona besingabatfoli but ezingishido because ama processes ethu sesiyascanner lama file so bese siyabatfola siyabadisa ukuthi cha information yakho sesiyitfolile lo muntu ufuna iproof ukuthi ukuthi angani ngakheli ngoba phela sesithi isikhathi bese siyabakhombisa nemaphepha ngoba ngithi siyabascanner abe soft copies bafaka emshinini so nangabe udinga leso siqiniseko ukuthi le mali lesisuyayi owa ingiyo so bese siyamvedela lamaphepha.
Okay, so indlela nje takuchumana nabo labo mhlambe labo lasebaqalile nje ukubhadala kubakhumbuta kubakhuthaza ukuthi babhadale ngitiphi indlela endisebenzisa konyashaya naba SMSela nenda kanjani nje kuza manje vele ukuthi kubacubutela ukuthi bachubeka amabhadala.
Nangabe bayahlukana lababhadala kahle asibacocudeli vele because bayabhadala sibese singena lapha nangabe mhlambe umuntu usocala ku default sithi siyahlola la especially labo labatibhadalela ke ebhange noma laba bema debit order bese siyashaya ukuthi how asikayiboni imali lenyanga phela siyacela sisendele bo SMSs sikhona ke na social media Facebook study loan recovery siyabhala nakhona imilayeto ukuthi nje abantu bahlale ba-updated ngekuthi kwendekani ka scholarship.
Kulabo lo uthite mhlambe balahlekelwa imisebenzi yabo ngekhathi tabo COVID bacela kuma kancane niyalibona inani labo selibuya sebabuya baphinze babhadala ngenxa ukuthi mhlambe sabakhonele ukuthola leyo msebenzi loyo lo khona ngenisa imali kukhona yini senibabona nje sebabuya sebachubeka nekubhadala imali labadekoletako.
Bayabuya nathi siyabahlupha ngoba angithi nje na mabaphuma sasiba documenta ukuthi okay nali alisakhona ikubhadala so siyabese nathi siyabuyela kubo labanye ukhanza sekuba nguye lo show ukuthi mina ngicela ukuthi ningimise sengibuyile sengiyasebenza sengicela ke sichubeke sibhadale. So because bekubantu vele bebabhadala akusibo besibaqosha, so bayabuya ke vele labanye kusho ukuthi cha sengigainfully employed ngicela sile sichubeka, because labanye vele abasifuni lesikweletu ufuna nje kwenca kuko achubeke nempilo endeletinye tintfo, so bayabuya kithi.
Okay. So kunama beneficiaries lokhanze ukuthi lamanye sewatfutha nje la Eswatini awasahlala la Eswatini sabahlala ngesheya kwetilwandle sebasebenza khona niyakhona yini kubatfola labo baya comply bona bayanisena ukuthi nabo kumele babhadale noma ngabe sebahlala ngale sebasebenza ngale baya comply kukhona yini batfolako labo khona kubhadala le mali?
Lesibatfolile lolu baba ngema beneficiaries lasijabulisa kakhulu ke la labangasekho la Eswatini, because ungama approach nje mase sitfolile kumbe ama details akhe uvele kumbe abhadale ngetikhawu letinkulu onome ayicethe yonke imali yakhe bayasibambisa kakhulu. Lokunye nje lesisa kubeke ehlelweni ngicabanga ukuthi uyakhumbula ukuthi mayisaqala iproject sasinele office South Africa eJozi, so sibukile ke sisakhulumisana nayo ministry ukuthi siphinze sibuyele sivulele le office, but so sisakhulumisana ke nelitiko ngicabanga ukuthi lokho kungasita because kulabanye ngicabanga ukuthi ama-South Africans especially kugcwele boma scams, so kuba ngcono lokuthi sibe khona i-presence yethu athi ukuthi into yalapha e-office lela kule building le vele ngidawutfola iSwati futhi umuntu into okhuluma naye iSwati ngi-understandane naye, so siyakufuna kukwenda lokho sibuyele sibe nalo le office because labanye ke vele bayakhala ngako, but nje wona ama-South Africa laba lese-South Africa bayasibambisa kakhulu masibatfolile ngoba ezisenda le day to day siyashayela wonke umuntu khanza ukuthi sohlangana naye wase South Africa uthole ama details akhe ukhona lo engage bese soyakubambisa.
Okay. So ngaphandle kwaleli hlelo lenjele nifuna ukule introduce na hulumende lokuthi nibadi naye access to government services kukhona mhlambe lokunyeleni kwendako kuzama vele kubaphocelela ngibekise nje mhlambe kubathumelela amasamani ukuthi wena wekunene sesekukhambele kaningi sesicela salo bhadalele mali niyafika ini kulelo zinga lelo uma ngabe kukanjalo kukhona indlela senibathumele.
Ngiyabonga Lulu. Itolo nje ekseni besithumela lamanye amasamani bakhona ayahlukana ke lamasamane abakhona alaba khanza usibeka sola bhadala akasafuni ke kubhadala so umile nalabo ke siyavele siyabathumelela phela ukuthi uyathi sesikushayele kaningi sakuthumelela ama SMS sakukhumbuda ukhanza ukuthi vele sekufuna kusengene umthetho ke lapho babakhona ke nalabo ukhanza ukuthi kumbe siye enkampaneni noma siyamshayela ukuthi sicela ubhadale phela sesikutholile na ema-fees akho bangafuni ke labo vele siyabathumelela ke ngoba sisebenzisana ne-office le ka SV Mdladla in associates, so sithumele ke i-list yethu kubo sesimane nisibonele nabantu naba bese ke ubabona sebagijima ke sebabuya ukuthi awuthi bathole masamane uyamati kumuntu sona excuse hayi mina bekunjena mina benginjena, but nje le response iba khona siyajabulisa bese sebayabuya, but nje lokukhulu asikhuthati lokuthi size sifike lapho asikuthanzi sithine sikuthatha nje ukuthi people must come willingly bangaze sebathola incwadi ede nje ngoba uyathi ukuthi scholarship njengoba sengishido tandla tethu tivulekile siyakhulumiseka nangabe sikhalo sakho mhlambe se-installment we are open sikulalele sicele ke lokho lesicelako ngoba phela bakhona ke lolu uyamata umuntu ukuthi une lomnye utawukhala uthi asongilethele iproof ukuthi vele lo lokushoko uthi uyabuka ukhanza hayi lo mvulona uyasijutha uyabona, so le timbepha nje letifakazela lokuthi loyo 600 ngeke umkhone sibe sesiyadidzinga ukuthi vele cha lo mvulona mhlambe usesimeni lesibi kakhulu.
Okay, kumbe nje kuphinze nje usichazele sitawucatha nje uphinze usichazele ngalama repayment plans lokuthi vele umumvu angakhona kubhadala ezlihle as how much mangabe vele isimo sibhetha kakhulu.
Angifuni kulikhipha angifuni kulikhipha lolu ukuthi as little as how much
ngifuna hola nje 2.5
akavele office sitawukhulumisana ngoba angifuni kubeka ifika bese umuntu ubamba leyo fika kanzi mhlambe uya afford but lokhu kahle ukuthi akavele office noma masimshayela asho ukuthi okay mina nginikale kanje asilethele lokho lesicelayo lokusifakazela ukuthi vele yena uhola leyo mali leyo unema expenses langaka uyabona because banu bahlukene uyabo but nje we are open for negotiation by installments ngiko sithi kude sidingo sekuthi umuntu angaqali kubhadala ngoba sisengakabi ukuthi si strict to statements sakho ukuthi nje statements sakho masithi badala 800 vele sithi mbhadale if you can afford angingasho ukuthi wonke umuntu nje so free ukuthi anga negotiate only if you can't njengoba ngishido siyabuka i-documentation ukuthi iyakuvumela yini nangabe ingakuvumeli cha vele sithi cha bamba yena lo 800 lokushoko because lokunye lokufuna sikunake ukuthi the maso negotiate lesikweletu sibe sincane kanti I mean le installment ukuthi ibe incane kanti lesikweletu sakho sikhulu then it will take you more years ukuthi ucethe kubhadala so kufuna bese siyakunaka naloko ezosa negotiate ukuthi uyathi asengibekise nje lo 400 bengambhadala for 6 years ngoba ngendi diploma ya 3 years but masengikhala kakhulu then I'll pay it in 10 years uyabona ke ukude lofuna kubhadala sikweleti lesithe kakhulu ngathi sebo 10 years so kufuna bakunake ukuthi the more ukhala the more lesikhathi siyanza sale repayment yakho.
Okay, kokugcina nje gogo engabe ngidingeka ukuthi ningibone physically noma mhlambe siyakhona ku communicate nge-email sicede nje konke ku email to conclude konke.
Awudzingi kufika e-office ungasitfola ku Facebook usibhalele ku inbox ungasitfola ecingweni usishayele ku 24050163/4/5 24050163/4/5 noma sibhalele email ku info@svnet.co.za noma ufakele mina ke personally ku google@svnet.co.za.
Alright, thanks so much. Sibonga kakhulu gogo usineta nje leso sithombe ukuthi kusebenzeka kanjani kuyo ku consortium yokukoleka imali yemfundzate yahulumende kulabo labasolo bangafuni ukubhadala special temakathi nasibuya siphetha hlelo nasifiso.
Bukela luhlelo embili kanye njalo ngelisonto ngensimbi yesithupha kusihlwa lapho sixoxa kabanti nalabathi ngetindzaba tenhlalakahle, temnotfo netentfutfuko. Lolu hlelo luveta luphindze lukhulumise ke imitsetfo, tinhlelo nemigomo yahulumende letfutfukisa ke sive seMaswati. Luveta ematfuba netisombululo letiletsa ke inchubekela phambili esiveni. Embili kanye makubete ke liswati lelisalela emuva live lisachubekela entfutfukweni lekhonsile.
Alright, sikuselimizuzu lemithathu utheshaya insimbi esiphohlongo lomhla ekseni sesifika nje amaphethelo nehlelo sibongela ukuthi ube nathi lo muhla mbukele ukuthi nje kutfokotele ngamaguest ethu ulabeka khona lamuhla lesisuka kuye nje gugu asimelana soka khona study loan recovery consortium solacikotela abantu ukuthi abavele khona emahhovisini abo kude batawukhona ke kubuyisela imali yahulumende khona phela nayo le mali leyo itawusita labanye njengoba yakusita nawe. I think nje lokubalekile la kuvetile indaba ukuthi ukuthi akukadingeki ukuthi ikhokhe yonke le mali. Akhona ama-payment agreements laba wendako nihlalisana phansi nalo novisi ukubuka ukuthi wena ungakhona ukukhokha malini ukuze kuphele isikweleti sakho. Kepha-ke kuvakabandi ungachumana nabo emakhasini abo angcomvomshina ubathumelele ne-email noma-ke ubashayele enombolweni tabo tiyatfolakala khona kuma-social media pages abo.
Yeah, I think only 2 messages from our show today, Lulu. Ukuthi abantu babhadale imali zabo lababhadalelwa ngato esikolweni baphindze bangalahle ama-plastic pass. Things for the simple. I believe it's very simple things. Isikweleti takho
sibhadale isikweleti.
Lekele kulahle ama-plastic. The world will be a much better place. Sengiyacabanga nje ukuthi nalabantwana la esikolweni lo khanza ukuthi abasakhona ukuthola scholarship. Babanjelwa ngibo bantu labafana nabo bolulu ngiyabhekisa khanza ukuthi bona abasafuni ukubhadala the scholarship kanti phela wawuchoma ukuthi ne-allowance uthenga bo red badge nani but nje ngokuthi lokho ngasathi lamahle ukuthi ababhadale vele it's quite imperative singahleka ngakho lolu but it's very important ukuthi le mali lesibhadala Zaba-ke ye-environment lesiyenzile nayo Mr. Gcina Isihlahla lo nguye-ke umphathi waka-EEA lo ngumcondzisi rather waka-EEA inzabe ukuthi kungalahle amaphepha uvetile ukuthi livela kangwane liphokophelele ekushayeni wona umthetho ekutheni kube nje complete ban yama-plastic etitolo sesitawubona ukuthi bantu batawukhona yini kuyi-unlearn le habit but just like he highlighted it has been an experiment for a while now ekutheni bantu bathenga ama-plastic baphindze baphathe ikhwama tabo so kuya kuleyo complete ban angeke kube yikho letasithusa kakhulu.
All right, thanks so much for joining us today. Stand by next time.